Hey. That is a disgusting act by Randy Moss.
He did what?
Jackpot, baby!
Ice up, son. Ice up. That is blasphemous. You can put it on the board. Yes.
With that being said, let's get right into Maryland basketball. And last night they went to New Jersey to take on the Rutgers Scarlet Knights. And Maryland played Rutgers 10 days ago in Xfinity Center. And they had an 11-point lead at halftime. But that lead was not a lead for long, as Rutgers came back and eventually won that game by double digits. So Maryland was coming back looking for some revenge. They came back needing to, in a critical spot, right? Because, if you've been following Maryland this season, you know that, well, their season hasn't really gone to plan. They started off top 25, in the country to start the year, and then 8 games in, their coach leaves, and then you're kind of in scramble mode to try to save the season before things really go off the rails. And, again, nobody has really, or Maryland has not really played up to anybody's expectations, but this is definitely, this game was a crucial game for Maryland, right? They just came off a huge win over Illinois, albeit they did not have Kofi Coburn in that game. Illinois did not, and they also, I believe, were without Andre Curbelo. So Maryland, but regardless, that was a big win for Maryland, and so they were coming into this game against Rutgers looking to kind of continue that, their run of wins, or not run of wins. They won one game. They're looking to win back-to-back games for, I believe, the first time in conference play. And same thing. They started off with a really nice lead. I think they were up by 20 at one point in the first half. I mean, they were just going. They were having arguably the best first half of the whole season. Some guys were hitting shots that haven't been hitting shots before. Fats Russell was one of those guys. He hadn't been hitting his threes this season. He was starting to knock some down. Qudus Wahab was having a nice game inside the paint early on. Eric Ayala was hitting shots. Dante Scott was not focusing so much on scoring. He was, focusing more on creating opportunities for others, and that was really huge. Just things were clicking, right? The defense was excellent. Like, just things were just clicking. And for the first time this season, Maryland played a game where you said, wow, where has that been all season, right? This was the first game where everything seemed to come together, right? Guys were hitting their shots, guys were rebounding, guys were creating opportunities for others. They were running an offense for the full 60 minutes for arguably the first game all season. I did not catch too much of the Illinois game. I was, I had some other responsibilities that I had to take care of. But, that the game against Rutgers, it really felt like, as I said, everything was just coming together, and it was like, finally, we're finally getting, we're finally playing the way we wanted to play all season. As I mentioned, guys like Fats Russell and Eric Ayala were hitting shots. Fats Russell and Eric Ayala combined for 45 points last night. And specifically for Fats Russell, he was playing the way that everybody in Terp Nation was expecting him to play when the transfer was announced, right? We heard Fats Russell was coming to town, and we thought, wow, that's what we had. That's what we need. That's what we need because we didn't have that last year. And what I mean by that is a solid point guard. Last year, Maryland did not have that the point guard that can go out and play 30, 35 minutes a game, right? It was kind of point guard by committee, where it was Eric Ayala sometimes. It was Hakeem Hart at times. They kind of, and there's somebody else, I can't remember the name. But they had, bottom line is, they didn't really have that set-in-stone point guard. We heard Fats Russell's coming to town. We thought, great, right? Fats Russell is going to be the guy. And he has been the guy that's played a lot. And he's been able to do dribble drive and all that kind of stuff, right? Everything that, he's been, that he did with that he did with Rhode Island. But he came to Maryland, and just the jumpers were not falling. The three-pointers were it just wasn't happening. And he was, I believe he hit I think he was 5 of 6 from 3 last night, which, to be honest with you, I haven't seen Fats Russell hit 5 threes in a week, much less one game. So for him to kind of see some shots fall, that is huge. And you know, I don't want to speculate here, but I don't want to say that, but I don't want to say that like this one game is going to mean that he's going to start hitting all his threes, right? But I think for any basketball player, whether it's Fats Russell or LeBron James, if you're going through a cold stretch and then you start to see some shots fall, that is great, right? That really helps boost your confidence a little bit. And for Fats Russell, one could only hope that last night's 23-point game means that, you know, the confidence is going to show up. I mean, time will tell, though. They got Indiana this Saturday at 2:30 on Fox. And, you know, like I said, we'll see, right? If he comes out and doesn't really, you know, have the same game that he did against Rutgers, then, you know, I guess we'll know. Hey, that was kind of that was a one-off, right? But if we start to see, you know, him play the same way he did against Rutgers, you can say, well, that game was a turning point for him. And maybe that's a game that we look back on and say that was the turning point for Fats Russell. Qudus Wahab, as I mentioned, he played well. He had a double-double last night, which I believe he's had a double-double earlier this year, but he played for the first time. He was like making some shots, which he's been struggling with a lot this season. And you know, again, I got to give it to him. I know I've kind of been you know, a little critical of Qudus Wahab this season, but you know, again, got to give him credit. Got to give credit where credit is due. He was making some shots. He was getting rebounds. That was what he was really struggling with earlier in the season was the rebounding from my perspective. You know, there were times where the ball would seem like maybe it would fall right in front of him and he didn't get it. And, you know, you kind of watch that back and you're like, well, how did he not get that rebound? That doesn't make any sense to me. There was a lot of that this season. And last night, you got to give credit where credit is due. He had a nice night last night. Hopefully we see that continue as well. However, right, they're winning. They ended up winning 68-60. There's a lot to be positive about. There's a lot to be, I guess you could say, optimistic about. But there was also some things that I was a little concerned about from that game last night. One of them being Hakeem Hart. Hakeem Hart has kind of been the guy that, you know, when nothing else was working, Hakeem Hart was right there to kind of salvage things a little bit, right? Hakeem Hart was the guy that when Dante Scott's shots weren't falling and Eric Ayala and Fats Russell couldn't get anything to fall, you know, you were thankful for Hakeem Hart to be there because he could get you some points. Not only last night, but I believe that not the Illinois game, but the game before against Michigan, I believe it was. He didn't seem like Hakeem Hart's kind of been in a stretch where, I don't know, it just seems like he's kind of fallen off a little bit, and there's some real concern there because, you know, and again, I understand that not everybody's going to get 20 points a game, but a guy that had been like one of the bigger contributors this season, when he didn't really do too much, that's kind of concerning because, you know, I mean, why wouldn't you be concerned, right? It's pretty obvious, but he didn't seem to be too much of a contributor or factor against Rutgers as much as he was earlier in the season. So again, everybody goes through a slump. Just because he, you know, didn't have his night against Rutgers doesn't mean that he's gonna, you know, go into a 3-game slump here. But you know, he hit a 3. I mean, he made some shots, but it wasn't the Hakeem Hart that at least I've seen in games prior. Julian Reese was another kind of concerning area of this game, and the thing is, he's a center, and okay, if you're the center and you can make jump shots and you can make 3-pointers, all right, take them if you can make them, right? Obviously, if you can make the shot, go ahead and take it. The problem is they haven't been falling for him lately, and going to the Maryland game there, you know, over winter break, there's a guy who sits next to me and he goes, "Tell you what, I do not like the center shooting the 3," and I understand that, and yeah, I don't like it either when it's not going in. and he hasn't been making them recently. So yeah, I think he needs to start cutting down on the amount of threes that he takes. It didn't hurt Maryland to the point where they lost the game last night, but I think I'm thinking about this 8-point win for Maryland, okay, and I'm thinking all those three. I think he took at least three shots from around the 3-point line. Whether his foot was on the line, it was a 2, but you get the point. He took some pretty far out jump shots, and I can only look at that and think to myself, well, if he hadn't shot that 3, let that play kind of play itself out, let the offense move, and let things kind of play out. Like I said, wonder how much they really could have won that game by, right? How many times on those possessions, right, could he have passed it out to Dante Scott or Hakeem Hart or Eric Ayala and Fats Russell? And there were a few times where he took that shot, and I was like, I think there's some guys open down there. Again, though, it did not hurt them to the point where they lost the game, thank goodness. But I think he needs to start making the threes in order to kind of validate the reason for shooting them. Dante Scott, back to more positive things though. Dante Scott, he played well, and I know he didn't have the most points in the world last night, but I think he played well. And Dante Scott's another guy that I've been critical of this season. And again, I know he didn't have a lot of points last night, but I thought he played fairly well. The first 10 minutes of the first half, he had 2 assists. And the announcer said, well, he doesn't even average 2 assists a game. So, and that's the issue. That was my issue with Dante Scott this season, is that he was really taking a lot of shots. They weren't falling, so of course that makes it look about 10 times worse than probably it really, 10 times worse than it is. But last night I felt like he was focusing much more on creating opportunities for others, right? If he drove to the hoop and that opened something up on the wing, he was passing it out, right? He wasn't trying to, go up through 3 different guys in the paint. He wasn't trying to score on while he was getting triple teamed in the paint. So I liked that from him. I also felt like he hustled a lot more on defense than he had in prior games. So that was something to be optimistic about as well. And one last thing before we hit the break here. There was a significant cut in play time for Ian Martinez and Xavier Green. And don't take this the wrong way. I'm not hating on them. I'm not trying to be rude here, but it's about time that Danny Manning and company realize that, well, maybe Ian Martinez and Xavier Green their play hasn't warranted them being on the floor as often as they have been. Xavier Green last night, he took a 3, he made it. Wasn't a fan of the shot. It went in, so of course it looked good. And when he made that 3, the announcer said, when Xavier Green's making a 3, things are going your way. And he's absolutely right with that comment, because Xavier Green is not a 3-point sharpshooter by any means. But I think Xavier Green he played well on defense. He kind of did what he is expected to do. And that's that. So I thought he played well, right? I think that not playing him as much kind of limited the amount of the opportunity he had to kind of mess things up a little bit. I know that sounds harsh, but that's just the way it is. And then for Maryland, before we hit the break, the season is not over yet. Do not give up on this team. They have been playing these last 2 games against Illinois and at Rutgers have been arguably their best 2 games of the season. I'm not saying they're going to go on some crazy run and make the tournament, but don't count this team out just yet. They can surprise you, and again, I would not give up on Maryland just yet. With that being said, I'm not saying they're going to make the tournament. I'm not saying they're going to win the Big Ten by any means. I believe they're still, bottom of the barrel in the Big Ten. But again, do not write this team off just yet.